Well, welcome back, everyone. As we go through our conference today, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat window in your Teams box. We'd be happy to answer them at the completion of each speaker and then also at our Q&A session later this afternoon. The next speaker for you is from our Fargo office. His name is Heath Erickson. Heath serves as the local government audit manager and has over 15 years of experience in our office. Heath earned his accounting degree from the University of Jamestown, has his CPA license, and he enjoys working with local governments across the state, but also across the stage if we were on a stage. Please welcome Heath.
Okay, thanks Emily for that. Well, I want to say good morning to you, and I'm just I'm just really happy that I wasn't having to go the first round. So thank you, Josh, for doing that for us. Well, I am very excited today to be here, and for the longest time, mornings are tough. So we'll get through it together. I've been trying to wake up for 15 years early, and it doesn't always work. So, but I think we're all good today, and we'll be able to get through together. So Josh and I have been talking about this event for quite some time. It might even been back about 3 years ago that we mentioned that, hey, maybe this is something that we could do, for all the people out there that we get to help. And in this kind of event, we get to reach more people. So Josh and I will probably be smiling quite a bit today because we've been waiting for it, and now today is here. So we're all very excited to be here to do that. Now, some of you out there have seen some of our events and some of our presentations, and we've been able to be involved with the Association of Counties and the League of Cities, and so we've been able to speak before and talk about things that are important to everybody, and to help people along the way in some of their challenges and their own situations. So, and some of you haven't had a chance to see us yet. So I hope today, while you're watching, that you're able to pick up something you didn't already know, and something that will help you conduct your job and to keep moving on your in your situation and what you have to deal with. So a little backstory on my time here. I've been here, August 1st of this year was my 15th anniversary, and along the way I've been able to be out there a lot to help people. And when we conduct these audits, we don't always just figure them as being audits. We like to help people along the way. So one thing that we love to do is to give any help or guidance while we're out there. So the time I've been here in the early years, it was nice to be able to see that there's a lot of hardworking people out there. And believe me, many times we've been to all of our audits and events. There's a lot of you out there that are hardworking, and you're just trying to do the best for your government and for people around you. So one of the things that is important to me on every audit, one of the goals that we have is to leave the entity in a little better condition than we found them in. And that's something very important to me. And I think for most of our audits, I think we're able to accomplish that in some way, one way or another. I think that the client and the people that we work with feel that this was a good audit. I'm glad you guys were here, and we always like to hear that. So if you ever have a chance to say thank you to your auditors out there when they're coming, they do appreciate that, and I know we do too. Also on what we're able to do for reaching people, throughout the 15 years I've been here, we have been able to do that to our clients. And when Josh and I were talking about this, we thought that there's a lot of other people out there that we haven't had a chance to reach. And so today, with the almost 300 people that we've had in in the queue for this meeting, for this day, now we can reach more people. So I think when we go through these presentations throughout the day, I hope some people have never seen us before will feel like, hey, we're here to help, and that's a good thing. So let me go to my first. So one thing that, with the time I have today, I want to, for one, I want to prove that auditors aren't so bad, and I will do that in some way. I'll explain how auditors can help you. I want to share some of my favorite topics that have the hugest impacts that I've seen throughout the state. I also want to give a little motivation out there as well. So I always start my presentations with a joke. And, my wife always tells me when I go somewhere that I should, one, try to be nice, and two, try to be a little funny. So with that, I'm going to attempt to have a joke here. And so how did the auditor propose to his girlfriend? With an engagement letter, of course. And I was married before I became an auditor, so I can only give limited assurance that this is probably going to work. So hope some of you enjoyed that out there. So how can an auditor help? So we can give some direction to make some good decisions. So over the years, auditors have been able to, like us, be able to help with some direction on topics like making adjustments to your general ledger. For example, we've had people ask, I need to make there's an error correction I need to make, or a prior period adjustment that for your beginning balances. How do we do that? What's the best way to do that? So, one, for example, that would be, if you have an error correction you have to make sure you document a reason for it. And in your organization, there's probably an approval process for adjustments. Make sure you have the proper approval, before making them. And then in some cases, you want the board to review those adjustments. And when you have that all done, you put it in a packet. And if anyone wants to ask what happened to an adjustment or a correction of some sort, you're going to have all your data right there. Another thing that we're able to do is give some ideas on good record keeping. Some of our clients that we've seen, for the first time, especially, they might wonder, what is the best way to do a capital asset listing, or keep track of my long-term debt, something like that. And so, the auditors are going to be able to help with that too. North Dakota Century Code. So this is a big topic. So there's lots of cases where people have called in to us and they ask about Century Code. And, even though we're not lawyers, we are able to give some direction on where a Century Code is located at. For certain entities, there's going to be times that there's going to be some special Century Codes just for you out there. And sometimes it's nice to be able to ask somebody, what exists out there. And for us at the auditor's office, I've had a lot of discussions about what is there and how it can affect you. And Century Codes, as you all know, change every year. So how does new ones affect us? That's what you're probably thinking. So we're able to have some direction on that. By all means, if you have a lawyer, you definitely want to use them. But in some cases, it's helpful to ask. Budget issues. We have someone in our group talking about the budget today, and which I'm very excited about as well. But the budget issues, we have many discussions from people the last couple of years calling in and to ask us questions about certain cases that might have a situation that they don't really know how to deal with. And if we can give some direction on where you could go, that's what we like to do. And those decisions are management decisions, but we're always up for a good discussion on the budget. I love talking about the budget. That one definitely has a big impact on what happens if you are in charge of the budget. It's a huge impact for you and your entity. Accounting policies. Usually when we have a new client, there's a lot of cases where accounting policies might be a little lacking. So either they didn't, maybe you haven't seen what is out there or thought about some of those accounting policies. We are able to give you some examples. The usual ones that we like to give, as examples when we find it is, one is a capital asset policy. What are useful lives, your depreciation method, all those things come into a policy, and we can give a template for people, which we've given many times over the years. Another one is a GASB 54 policy, and that deals with fund balances. What can the entity do for the balances for assigned, restricted, unassigned balances? That's a great policy that we've given out to people as well. Credit card policy. A lot of times when ND has a credit card, it's always nice to have a policy there, ready and waiting. And some entities have reached out to me and asked me if it's a good idea to have a credit card. If there's the situation is right, yes, you can have a credit card, but there's always controls you have to have in place, and that's kind of what this credit card policy that we've given out to people is like. So we've been very happy to do that. We may also know who is in the know on difficult topics. So we have a lot of questions that come into our office that we'll run through our team and see if anybody has any ideas. And there's sometimes that we may know someone who can give the best answer. And there's a lot of programs out there with DPI and DOT and all the different agencies. And sometimes it's nice to know who to go talk to. And for my team at the office here, we have a lot of connections with those agencies. We know who's in the know. So when people ask questions, I really want to just give them to the right people. And then usually I say too at the end, if you don't get your answer, please come back. So that's something that we always want to push. We may be able to share best practices to improve your entity. So while we go through all these audits, we're able to give some ideas on what is the best way to do something. It could be how to keep track of my capital asset listing or my inventory. What's the process for that? We're able to do that when the questions are asked, and even sometimes if I don't know the best practice, I probably know someone who does. So I'm going to send you somewhere to get those answered. We can also provide helpful tips and tricks. With a world full of technology of all sorts, whether it be your software, your Excel sheets, your Word documents, it is always helpful to know someone in the know on what are some helpful things that you can do to keep track of things in Excel or formulas. There's a lot of people in our group that love making formulas. So if anyone has ever asked us while on the audit, believe me, there's plenty of people ready and waiting to answer those questions. And after going through some of these things, like software programs, a lot of people have troubles with softwares. Maybe help desk isn't the greatest on some of your software programs. Sometimes it's nice to have your auditor there to maybe help you ask questions. I've been involved in a lot of discussions with people's own software IT help, and we're able to assist in that as well. So one quick story here I have, in some of my first years here, I spent a lot of nights and a lot of audits in Devil's Lake. And one of my favorite stories I tell people sometimes is, there's a little grocery store, nearby the courthouse, and for quite a few years, we'd go there to buy groceries or anything like that. And one of the times afterwards, I was, usually our attire at that time was, a button-down white shirt, tie, khakis, and while going to the store, I'd try to find my own food, and I had, for one time, I had a little bit older lady to ask me where the milk was. Since I knew where it was, I took her right to it, and she was on her way. Next time, I was walking a little bit further, and other people were asking me where stuff was. Since I've been there for a few years, I knew everything was. So I kept showing people where their stuff was in their aisles. And then finally I found an employee walking around, and they were dressed just like me. So that is why they kept asking me questions. But it's an example that even an auditor can help in a grocery store. Yeah, you may ask, sometimes are auditors like robots? I would say yes, sometimes. some of the responses that you will get from any of our team or any of your own auditors are probably going to be about facts and criteria, and most times we don't include any personal opinions. And I think what an email would look like. And since I've been working with this presentation a little bit, I notice more now. Some of my emails will look like, here's the information that you need. Here's the criteria that you're wanting. Thank you for asking this question today. That's very a common email that I've sent out. I know some of my coworkers do too. And emails, like I said, emails will most likely be short and to the point. And sometimes that's a good thing. You want an answer, we're going to give it to you. And I did send an email one time to a coworker in our communications department, and they responded with a beep beep bop bop or something, and it was a good thing because I knew what that meant as a robot. So another thing is we will tell you what is right or wrong, and be able to tell you why. And even when it's probably not the answer you may want, it's probably the one you need. And I have a lot of cases of that where I get a phone call, and the only thing that is asked is, I need an honest answer from you on something, and I will give it. Even if some of their people in their organization maybe don't want to hear the answer, they will get the right one. And I really appreciate that when people ask those questions. We don't quit till the job is done. Just like any robot out there, if you request it to do something, it will keep doing until it's done. And many times over the years, my brain doesn't usually shut off on the weekend either. I'm always thinking about what's going on out there, and we've had people ask great questions. A lot of times I cannot stop thinking about it until it's complete. So that is very true, that we won't quit. So presentation is important in government. Always, you always want to promote yourself and the entity to be responsible, respectful, and reliable. And I call it the 3 R's. So I found in so many cases that, if you follow that method, things go a lot nicer. For us, we always promote that in all of our audits, and it is very nice when we get that back. And I think if you out there, you want to promote all those things to any of your situation, not just an audit, when citizens come in, we have to deal with a board member or other staff members. Keep that in mind. It's something that's very helpful, and it's very effective. Find the positive in situations and don't focus on the negative. Sometimes mistakes can happen, and audits may come with a finding, and sometimes those mistakes can turn into preventive measures that may help you deter mistakes in the future, and maybe even bigger mistakes. So we always like it when we see the more positive take on those things. If mistakes are made, promote the idea of fixing the situation instead of hiding it. Many times, we've had audits where, we've had to give findings on, and believe me, when the client or any of our people we work with on that wants to fix it immediately, and sometimes even resolve the issue before the audit's complete, that's great. I think we always give some great kudos to everybody who do those things, and it's a great thing to do that. So if mistakes are made, promote the idea of fixing the situation instead of hiding it. That's a great thing to do. We've had many examples of that. If the public should know something, promote transparency and be able to explain things. One of the examples I can think of is a budget. And if you can have a transparent budget and you have all support behind it, people may come ask questions. And if you're able to explain everything that is needed to send those citizens on their way, it's a great thing to do. And you can put that into a lot of situations that may have the public involved with. You see the bottom of my screen there. We have, I don't know if some of you are Marvel fans out there, but we got, one of the movies that was, for me, a little bit tough to watch was Captain America Civil War. We had Captain America and Iron Man here. I think the presentation that Cap could have had during this movie is, I got a problem. I have someone needs some help. Are you able to help me out? And who can help me? And I think that I never got asked if that was the right direction in that movie, but I think in this case, some of you may feel like that you're shielding somebody back, and I think if you do some of these things, I think it does help along the way. So favorite topics, big impacts. So for this slide, I had to think of, try to limit to 4. There's a lot of things that over the years we've been able to do that have had a big impact in the state, statewide, through all the governments that we've been able to help with. And number 1 on this list, I do have is the budget process. In the last couple of years, we've been able to really help with that, and I've been involved in some other discussions with the associated counties, League of Cities, and we've had some great success on creating a new file for people to use if they wish to on our website. And I think that was one of the biggest things that we've done lately, and we've had a lot of questions about it, especially this last summer. Many times I've answered questions about what could this look like, how should I improve this, and I appreciate anyone who did reach out to us during that time. And there's a lot of work to do on that yet, but there's a good movement on that, and believe me, I'm there to help. Other people in this group are here to help. We're going to be talking about the budget process during today, so I want to save a lot of that for them. But it was a huge deal that we were able to help with that. Number 2, financial statement preparation for the clients. So throughout the time I was here, and this was in the early years, a lot of our clients would start to ask, like, man, how do I do that? And we started to come up with things that the clients could do to help on the audit. Make their own Excel schedules, for the audit. And then sometimes we even had people ask us, man, how do I prepare the financial statements and notes? And boy, we like those questions too, because that means that they really do care, and they want to learn something. And some of those things, it's hard to find someone to teach you how to do that. It's not easy, and some people don't have accounting degrees, and that's totally fine. But somewhere along the way, we've been able to help people through that process, make their own schedules. For example, like capital assets is a big topic when we go on audits, and we've been able to give people some great Excel spreadsheets that they can use all year round, and then when they come for the audit, everything is there, and the audits go a lot smoother. They're cheaper because of that reason. If you got these records, we don't have to go find them, and that process has been huge over the years. And we've been able to even have a few of our clients able to prepare their own completely, and that was a huge feat that they had. It might take them a few years to get all the way there, but every year they wanted a little bit more. And myself and my team members, we always want to promote that. We love to be able to show people how to do more during the audit process, so it makes things easier. So that was one of the biggest topics that I can think of too. Another one is a finance committee. So this was an idea that we came up with a while ago too, years ago now. But some of you probably have seen some of the recommendations about segregation duties, and it kind of all stemmed from, like, what do I got a small group in my government that are responsible for everything. What can we do? So a finance committee, if you do this right, let's say, for example, we got a school district, and you want to be able to create a finance committee. What's that look like? So you're gonna have a business manager, you're gonna have a superintendent, and you're gonna probably have a rotating board member. And in that finance committee, you're gonna be able to do a lot of things with that group. Some of the things that are very important that this group can do is, one of them is like the bank reconciliation review on a monthly basis. I don't know how many times we've been to some of our clients that sometimes those mistakes happen, and there's many months of errors or sometimes not even being done, and that can be a huge impact for your entity, is to not have those complete. So a finance committee, if that's there, guess what? They're going to be able to go through that month to month, make sure there's no problems, and if there is one, they can on that 1 month and not have to wait for 6 months or a year, or sometimes even more than a year. Another thing that the finance committee can do is, before a usual or normal board meeting, they're able to go look at their budget actual statements beforehand, so they can know on a month-to-month basis, what can we do to, or is there any issues with the budget? Do we have to make amendments? All those things can happen in that committee before the normal board meets. So it's a huge help. Also, that finance committee, which I'll be talking about soon, is, they can be responsible to do a fraud risk assessment. And that kind of leads me into my number 4 category, is the fraud risk assessment. So for years, we've been trying to promote that these are good to have. And if anybody's out there wondering, or if you're wondering out there if I'm going to keep going with it, or have more to do with this, I'm going to grant that wish, because that's going to be my next slides. So I hope this is going to be something that will help your entities. This is one of my favorite topics out there, and I hope I can do some help with that as well. So what is a fraud risk assessment? And I'm going to read this because it's pretty important. A fraud risk assessment is an effective tool utilized by entities of all sizes and industries to effectively identify and prioritize areas of fraud risk within their organization, with a focus on the review of potential fraud schemes and the internal controls in place to prevent and detect those schemes. So, why would you do a fraud risk assessment? And nobody wants to think that there can be fraud in their own entity or someone around them, but it does happen. And some of you probably have seen this fraud triangle before, but it's pretty important when you're trying to create your fraud risk assessment. Why are you doing it? And I'm going to go through some of these categories, and it's kind of eye-opening if you haven't really looked at this fraud triangle very often, because there's been cases where I've gotten to see a little bit of this out there. And usually when it does happen, all 3 of these things are there. And it was not long ago where I did have to sit on something, and I asked some questions, and all 3 categories were there. So that's why I figured today I want to spend a little bit of time with this. So one of the categories is motive pressure. Personal financial pressure. Maybe someone has a high credit card debt, or there's an addiction of some kind, gambling, or just online shopping, way too much. I know I do that sometimes too on Amazon. And those are normal things, but sometimes they get out of hand, and then this creates some kind of pressure out there. Rationalization. So, some may think, I haven't received a raise in a long time. It's only a loan. I'm going to pay it back. Things like that. Those, someone's going to have to rationalize, why they did it. Sometimes it might be, someone treated you wrong, or upper management isn't doing too well, and I don't like what's going on. There's no other solution. The only thing that you can do is commit fraud to keep going. Those are things that are in people's heads sometimes, and you're not going to probably know who's thinking about those things along the way. So it's very important to understand that they can happen. The opportunity. So the opportunity refers to circumstances that allow fraud to occur. And the fraud triangle it's the only component that the entity has some control over. Examples that provide opportunities for committing fraud are like weak internal controls. I don't know how many times we've talked to a lot of clients about internal controls. It's very important to have them pour tone at the top. Maybe there's upper management that either don't care or they're not interested in the business of what's going on. Not really concerned about what some of the staff are up to. So there's no oversight there. Sometimes inadequate accounting policies, which we talked about a little bit earlier. If there's no accounting policies there to help prevent things, maybe there's something like a listing that has to be made in capital assets, or when you delete something, it's going to have to be approved. Some of those accounting policies may not be there, and that means that the fraud risk assessment is the one thing that can remove the opportunity from the equation, and thus help prevent some fraud from taking place. So somebody may ask, how do you create something like this, or what's the recipe? So one of the things that you want to do is you want to create the special group, and this could be that finance committee if you choose that direction. But either way, that group of people should be responsible. Somebody needs to trust these people, and need to know what the entity is like in and out. They know all departments. And then what you do next is you go through the departments. So let's say you have if you have a school, there's going to be the business office, superintendent's office, other types of groups in there. A city, you're going to have a sewer and your water and public works, all those different departments. You need to find out where they are at, who's in charge of them, and list them so what is there to assess. Number 3 is find what can go wrong. So in some of those departments, each department is going to have a different story, and you're going to have to say to yourself, or in this group's going to have to say to themselves, what can go wrong? So list those things, and there might be, in some departments, there might be a lot of things that can go wrong. Someone keeps cash. Someone has a lot of purchases being made throughout the year, and those things are going to affect what you put down in that category. Then next, you want to list the risks. After you find what can go wrong, you have to come up with, okay, what can actually go wrong? What's the risk of something happening? And that could be tough. We've been definitely pushing the fraud risk assessment in a lot of our audits for years. And when clients have done it, guess what? When they get to this point, it's tough. They have to know, okay, because of this issue, what can go wrong, and you gotta list them out, and then you can address them. Next is prepare the risk response if needed. So there's gonna be times that once you go through that list, there might not be nothing. There might not be anything that you need to do because you already have a good control in place, and everything's working. There's gonna be some times that it's not working, and then that's when you have to prepare that risk response. And that's a tough one too. There's a lot of people who ask us questions about that, and they get all the way to the end on that, and then what to do. And that's when those controls come into place. You might have a couple people in the office, or sometimes even one person in the office. What are you going to do to make sure something does not happen? And then the last one for the recipe is someone's got to monitor and update it. So this could be the responsibility of this. This is the responsibility of this special group. It could be your finance committee. It could be another type of group that you want to do. But either way, someone's going to have to monitor and update it. And what that means is it could be monthly. It could be twice a year, once a year. Whatever you decide, it's important. And updating it is also important. So when you have new people come on, you have new duties. Maybe you're switching duties between departments. All that stuff is going to matter in this risk assessment. So it's very important to That's actually whenever everything's done. If you do not monitor and update it, you've probably wasted your time. If you've done that. So if you have one out there, or if you want to create one, it's a good deal. So I do want to go over, just because I think it's important. I have a little example that someone could create. This is a school district that I just kind of quickly came up with, and the finance committee did approve this, or they did make this. So that's what kind of group was involved. I hope some of you can see it out there, but one of the categories that is I know comes up a lot for us is the revenue recognition. In this case, the fraud risk is going to be, the revenue does not agree with the general ledger, and the bank statement does not match, and that does happen. We've seen it. In this scenario, they figured there's a newer person, I think, in this example, so the likelihood is high. It's significant. Well, a school district's gonna have a lot of revenue, so that's going to be a yes. The business office, that's where it's at. And the existing controls, there is none. And then adequate, of course not. And is it monitored? Nope. So guess what? Someone had to do some work. So they had to figure out what could someone do to help prevent anything that could go wrong in this one. So in this case, the business manager is going to review the revenue entries weekly from the assistant, since there is one there, and in the companies, or they compare it to the bank statement and the ACH deposits. Business manager also is going to receive all the invoices. Oh, sorry about that. So for revenue, that's where that's at. And if you can accomplish something like that, that's very good. So next example, expenditures. That's another one that's we've been asked about a lot about is, the fraud risk is expenditures are going to be missing in the general ledger, but the checks and there were checks written and were mailed out. So in this case, we had a likelihood. We got a newer person in the office. Yep, it's going to be high. Significant? Yes, we made write a lot of checks. This department is a business office. The existing controls, we don't have any. Control adequate? Nope, and there's no monitoring. So in this case, we're going to the business manager is going to have they can review the general ledger and then signs a check. The board reviews all the checks prior to mailing, and there's going to be a good separation of duties between those two people. So that's something very important. Another one that we can go over is cash. Cash is there's going to be some entities that have a lot of cash, left in a drawer or in a lockbox in their entity. Whatever the case is, cash is cash. If somebody walks away with it, it's easy, for some people to do that. So that's going to be a fraud risk. Likelihood, maybe we've got all new people in this division. Again, we don't know. So, but in this case here, we have decided to be low, and then significant. Nope, we don't do that. So there's going to be times that the cash is going to be important, and then sometimes the cash is going to be not as important. In this case, there's a control there. So, the cash is kept in a locked box and is counted by both the business manager and the assistant, and there's a good approval process there. So in this case, everything was okay. We do not have to have a fraud risk response. So another one I want to talk about is, the payroll one. That's an important one. One of the risks could be the health insurance might be paid for an employee that is no longer here. With all the different changes of staff, the school figures that, this is an important one. But in this case, likelihood is low. They probably have someone who's already on that. Significant could be yes, but in this case, I think there was a decision made that, okay, we need to have a fraud risk response. So in that one, each payroll, when this payroll is run, a current employee list is going to be compared to the insurance listing for TFR and DPERS, and to ensure that accurate payments are there and they're deleted when they're supposed to. Capital assets. So another one that's important, you know, the risk is to be deleted assets are stolen. That can happen. And sometimes, you know, maybe a school district is going to have a lot of different invoices, and that's important. So in this case, it's going to be high. You know, sometimes it's going to be yes. It's in the business office. There's going to be a risk response at the end, and there's going to be a procedure, you know, for deleted assets. And in this case, it's going to be taking the surplus. The return is going to be the return receipt is going to be given, and someone's going to approve it. So that's the example that we have, and you know we do have we've been given this finding out for quite some time, and so we have some examples. And if somebody does, you know, want to learn more about it, or you know they want to actually see an example, you know, please, I have my email in my first slide. If you have, you know, any questions about that, you know, please let me know. At some point, we'll probably have some of these templates on our website. As of right now, they're not. So if you really do, you know, wish to know more about it, and even have an example, a template to start with, you know, just let me know. I'm always up for that discussion. We've had some great ones on that topic. Okay, so that goes into my next, my last part of my presentation. Is, you know, I want to give a little motivation out there. You know, we've had, I've had a lot of people over the last couple of years just talk to me about, you know, a lot of different things. You know, maybe they're, you know, one example I could think of is someone was going to become a higher position in their government, and you know, I think, you know, they felt they couldn't do it. And you know, I've been working with them for some time, and if they're listening out there, you know, they are still there. They did take that position, and I think after hearing a few of those things like that throughout my time here, I think it's important to know that there's a lot of people that go through things too. So for my own example, I do want to share a few things that's happened to me along the way. And so hopefully, you know, this helps, you know, somebody out there if they're wondering if they can do a job, or somebody tells you that you can't do it. You know, hopefully this will help a little bit. So when I was in high school, there was someone in a higher authority there at one time told me that I probably shouldn't go to college. I didn't have the study habits. You know, I didn't pay attention, maybe think about other things, sports, or, you know, whatever else. So one of the discussions that in my senior year in high school had with them was maybe college isn't a good option. And I think my way home after that good discussion was I was going to prove that person wrong, you know, and that's what I really wanted to do. So, you know, I went to the University of Jamestown, and I was able to, you know, go there, and I studied all the time. I doubled majored, I doubled minored, and throughout that time there, I mean, those testing was tough. You know, I had trouble taking tests, and I had to overcome a few things there, and you know, that's one that I did end up graduating after 5 years being there with all that. And you know, to this day, I have that that diploma on my wall. I look at it every once in a while because I remember that someone told me that I couldn't do it. You know, it was too tough for me. It was not for me, and I decided myself that that was really not what I wanted, and I could prove them wrong too. So I did that. Another one that was a good one for me was, you know, I was during college. You know, they want to push a CPA. You know, that's a good thing to do as an accountant. So yes, of course I want to do that. Some of the professors, once they knew me there, you know, they mentioned to me that, yeah, these tests are tough. You know, they're sometimes they're up to, you know, 3 or 4 hours long, and we have to work quick. You know, for me, I had a hard time taking tests. I could learn anything, but the test part of it was always a struggle. I think my heartbeat would go up at least 20 points during those tests, and I couldn't always think the best. So I had probably some test anxiety. So along that way, for taking the CPA, I had some of my first scores were 73, 74, and passing at 75. So it was just about there, but it didn't seem to matter what I did, how long I studied for. I can memorize that whole book and still get a 74. And at one point I had to break it to my wife, who I met in college, by the way, that I was supposed to go to. I had to break it to her that, I'm gonna have to quit. I'm going to have to, since I am a grown person, I can make these decisions, and like that little guy in the Mandalorian show, I've spoken. And so I kept studying after that, and ended up passing all four parts, and passing that and receiving that was one of the best days I've had in a long time. And a lot of people on the way said that I should just quit. It's not worth it. It's just too much time. We don't see you anymore. All you do is studying after work, which I did that a lot. So, but it was worth it. I was able to get that, and that one's also probably put on my wall as well. And I do not take either of those two for granted. It's tough. College is tough. Taking those bigger tests are tough. And if you want to do those things, those are two examples that it can be done. Now the last one is my favorite one. So along the way, in the early years, I probably was a little more. I was pretty picky on a lot of things. I maybe wasn't compatible, with other people sometimes, as being a auditor robot type person. And I had someone tell me, I was always good with older kids, or just kind of playing with them, just for fun, sports type things, whatever. And so people would tell me, yeah, you'll be a good fun uncle. That's about as far as you'll get with that. So I did meet someone in college, so I did got a great, wonderful wife, and then we started to have kids. So we had kiddo number 1, and that was great. It was a special time. Kid number 2 came. That was awesome. It was good times. Number 3 came, and yeah, it was good. It was great. Things are busy, at 3 kids. So for me, I was happy. That was kind of what we were expecting. And at one point, my wife said that maybe we should have another one, number 4. So I had to break it to her that number 3 was good, and we're busy, and I'm able to make my own decisions, and I've spoken. So on March of 2021, we had our 4th, and it was great. I wouldn't go back in time, for the world, and they might be watching today, so they're very special, and everything I do is for them. So with that, that's kind of that part of it. I want to tell you, don't give up out there. Your government needs you. So one of the things that is important for everybody is budgets need to be created. If you're a part of that process in your own government or agency, and you are essential to that government at all times with that budget. It might be once a year for you all, but it's a huge deal, and that's something that we'll be talking about today. It's such a big topic that we're doing that later today as well. But the budgets need to be created, and if you're doing that, government needs to be there. Number 2, citizens need someone to talk to. I don't know how many times I've heard of citizens coming and asking questions to our cities and counties, and some have a great reputation for explaining things to people and make sure everyone's informed. And if you're out there right now doing those things for the citizens, man, you're an important person. Those citizens need you, and I hope that's something that you enjoy, and if people around you can see that as well, that you're you are important for that. I hope you're appreciated in that way too. Number 3, so future staff need you to be there for them. So in my own situation, you know, if I wasn't here to help people, you know, get on track and get here and do their work, if you are one of these people that are also doing that, it's very important. Staff right now are very important, especially if there's a little shortage out there for who's walking around wanting to do a job like that. And if you're there helping them and finding people to work at your entity, yep, you are very important to that place. And you know, it could be hard to find people, but you know, it could be done. You know, you give someone a good environment, and if you're part of that environment, that's huge. People will come. Those are the next people that are going to maybe take over your spot someday. You know, and someone needs to be there. So I hope you stay there for that too. Someone may need to apply for important grants or from the state or federal. I'm sure some of you have known that in the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of grants have been available for people. And that's huge. That's huge right now to be able to have someone to keep records, to apply for things. If you're part of that, that is huge. And I appreciate you guys all being there, you know, for that part of it. And you know, I think everyone knows that that's something that's really required and needed to have someone there. So if you're there, don't give up. You know, we need you there. And the last one, someone needs to be a financial watchdog. Our group and kind of ours in general are known to be that financial watchdog. But throughout the year, there are so many things that can happen that, you know, we may not know. Once a year, for once a year. Those day-to-day operations and what can go wrong in the day-to-day operation situation, that needs to be one of you. And if you're out there and you are the one responsible for keeping books or keeping track of other documents that are important, you know, for your government, you need to be there. You know, someone needs to be there. And you know, I know I've seen that many times throughout my years here, that those people are not easily replaced, and that all comes with experience. And if you've been there for a while and things are tough right now, you know, I do personally want to say that you're important out there, and I hope you keep fighting the good fight. So I think, is there any questions?
Yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop those into the chat box. We're just going to pull that up really quick here. There was a question from Sandy asking about a list of contact names for our department. Sandy, we'll go ahead and send that your way. If anyone else has questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Just pop them into the chat window. We did have a question come in regarding a question of the Finance Committee. Who are the recommended members who compose a Finance Committee?
Sure. So, and it kind of depends on your entity, but you know, if you're a city or a county, those kind of examples, you know, you could have a county auditor and a treasurer and a board member, you know, for a county. For a city, you know, you can have a city administrator, you can have an accountant, and then a board member as well. Usually we like to see one of the board members involved, and they can be rotating. You know, it can be kind of a challenging thing for board members to do that every month. So we've seen it many times that they'll rotate. But either way, it should be someone who knows the entity, knows those other departments, and you know, and also able to come up with those risks. And if there's certain people in your organization that you know of that can do a great job with that, does not have to be someone the highest level in that position or in those departments. Maybe there's staff members that are really good at seeing things like this. They can be part of that finance committee too. It really can be up to you of what that committee looks like. But that's just some examples that we know of.
Next question, what happens with the budget after the county auditor receives it? Does the county forward it to the state?
Okay, well, I think that probably be a good question for, I think, our next session. That's about the budget in general. So I think we'll wait for that one, but we'll keep that in the queue. So we'll make sure we answer that later.
One final question, do cities need to use the budget from that that is on the state auditor's website?
So for cities, that one is there, for example. So those Excel sheets are meant to mirror what is required in state law. So if you want to use something else that looks a lot like it, or it does the same thing, sometimes even softwares will have a budget program that is available for people to use, as long as everything refers to century code, which we'll have someone be talking about the budget very soon, and as long as you follow century code with that, you do for cities. It really anybody, as long as you follow century code, that is the main thing.